Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about personality, part two, educational psychology. Disclaimer: the video content has been made available for informational and educational purpose only. In part one, we have discussed about introduction and meaning of the term personality, definitions, and the characteristics of the personality, the uses of knowledge of the personality to the teachers, and the factors influencing the personality development, like biological factors, social, logical factors, and psychological factors. And we have seen each and everything in detail, like biological factor, what is the impact of physic, chemic, and the nervous systems, and social factors like home, school, and culture, and psychological factors and theory of personalities. We have gone through like type approach, trait approach, and the type come trait approach. Now we are going to start with type approach to the personality. The type approach to the personality attempts to classify the people into few types, each characterizing the certain styles of life which give it a separate identity. First one, we have many classifications like Galen's classification, Kretschmer's classifications, Pranger's classification, Sheldon classifications, Lippitt classification, Ogburn's classification, and Jung's classification. First, we'll look into Galen's classification. Galen has classified people into four types according to their temperament as choleric, the like irritable, melancholic, sad, and phlegmatic, it's a sleepy, and sanguine, smiling. Kretschmer's classification, like Ernest Kretschmer, a German psychiatrist, refer to three broad types of a human personality based on the bodily build, like arsenic, pink, athletic. Arsenic is a thin, long-limbed, narrow-chested who are shy, sensitive, aloof, and withdrawing. Picnic means short, fat, and barrel-chested who are jovial, lively, outgoing with fluctuating moods, and athletic with a strong, steady limbs and bones. The athletic and asthenic type of body build go with what is known as Zeitzone. SCHIZOTHYME personality, and the picnic at body type goes with cyclothyme personality. The former is basically introvert and later is an extrovert. SCH is introvert, cyclo is extrovert. These personalities types are each prone to distinct type of mental disorder. Spranger's classifications: Edward Spranger, a German philosopher, divided human beings on the basis of values or interest in following six categories. One is theoretical, economic, aesthetic, social, political, and religious. Alport, Vernon, and Lindsay have constructed an inventory to study the above six values. Let's look into each values in detail. Yeah, theoretical, the persons who are theoretical in nature neglect the social and political participations. Economic, those persons who are interested in money hoardings. Aesthetics, those persons who love beauty and are busy in sensuous gratification. Social, the persons who are interested in social activities. Political, dominating and desirous of the power. Religious, persons who devote themselves to religious activities and mysticism. Sheldon's classifications. Dr. William H. L. Sheldon, an American surgeon, classified the human beings into three broad categories of physical dimensions and their corresponding temperamental characteristics. The three personalities are endomorphic, ectomorphic, and mesomorphic. Endomorphic is round, fat, and soft. Ectomorphic is delicate, lean, and linear body build. And mesomorphic is a hard and muscular. Endomorphic individuals have the type of Vescatonia, mesomorphs have somatonia, and ectomorphs have cerebrotonia. Temperamentally, viscer- viscotonia implies love of leisure, desire for enjoyment, desire for the food and sleep, interest in the childhood experience, etc. Cerebrotonia implies disciplined behavior, ready response to stimulations, lack of interest in social interactions, hypersensitivity to pain, etc. Somatotonic personalities exhibit persistence in behavior, desire for adventure, courage, indifference to pain, involvement in actions, etc. The children point out that each type of body dimension for an individual may be rated on a 7-point scale, and the normal psych will be a Sheldon's classification of body types. He has classified the body type into personality type and typical traits. Body type is endomorphy, is tendency towards roundness and softness. It's called vesotonia, fond of food, inclined to eat too much, apprehensive, insecure, amiable, sleeps well, conforms to social conventions. Mesomorphy, a predominance of muscle and bone. Somatotonia, adventurous likes strenuous exercise and cold showers, dresses informally, withstand pain easily and willingly. Ectomorphy is fragility and linearly in body build. Cerebrotonia, asocial unamiable, lacks desire for exercise and non-adventurous and does not withstand pain easily. The lipids classification. Lipid and White have identified three types of personality based on the following three leadership styles, like authoritarian, democratic, and laissez-faire. Authoritarian is the forces his decision ruthlessly with powers on others. Democratic is a seek consensus while taking decisions, and laissez-faire is everyone acts on his own. The leader has no power or control over others. One serious objection to such issue views is that changes of psyche often occurs for individuals at middle age, but this is not often accompanied by any changes in personality characteristics. Ogburn's classification. Sociologists like Ogburn classify the human personality: revolutionist, leader, proud, gambler, and exhibitionist. A Jung's classification. The most popular personality types are those introduced by Carl Jung. Extroversion and introversions. The most popular personality types are those introduced by Carl Jung. Extroversion and introversion. One who exhibit extroversion is an extrovert, and opposed to him is the introvert. The extrovert is readily susceptible to external stimulations. He likes to get deeply involved in social activities. He is not very much bothered by outside criticisms. He displays his emotion openly, is less worried about failures, and lacks the power of self criticism. But the introvert is immersed in his own thoughts, memories, imagination, and is indifferent to social situations. He often tends to conceal his emotions, is highly sensitive to criticisms, and deeply upset by failures. He is invariably self centered. This classification has been criticized on the grounds that, in general, people have characteristics of extroversion and introversion mixed in them at different levels and exhibit one type of characteristics dominantly in one situation and other set of characteristics it in yet another situations. Nobody is a perfect extrovert or introvert. Limitations of the type approach. The type approaches have obvious limitations. Few people fit into such distinct type easily. Jung himself says that most persons appear to be atypical or ambiguous. Even the introversion, extroversion now appear to have aspects, and one who is introverted is in social activity may not be equally so in his thinking. It should be noted that a type approach tries to describe practically useful distinctions among the persons, but such distinctions are only relative. The human personality is too rich and often too unusual to be described in one or two general types. Trait approach to personality. The meaning of the term trait. A personality trait is an enduring and consistent characteristics of a person that is observed in a wide variety of situations. Such terms as intelligence, emotional sensitivity, ascendance, submission, irritability, warmth, etc. are personal traits. The Cattle's trait approach to the personality. The Cattle has identified 12 independent and 4 secondary traits that describe the complete personality of an individual. These 16 personality factors are bipolar, referring to the opposite or extreme degrees. They are genial, hostile, intelligent, stupid, emotionally stable, changeable, dominant, submissive, cheerful and unhappy, sensitive, hard-boiled, thoughtful and aesthetic, boorish and coarse, conscientious, slipshod, cooperative, reserved, vigorous, slack, hypersensitive, sensitive, phlegmatic, friendly, suspicious. Cattell named these 16 personality traits as source traits, differentiating them from surface traits. The surface traits are easily observable, but the real traits are source traits, which represent a deeper unity than that revealed by surface traits. Eskin's type come a trait approach to personality. Eskin's provide a hierarchical type approach. Esnick's type come a trait approach to personality. Esnick provides a hierarchical types approach to personality, combining both the type and trait approaches. He describes three basic categories of a personality at the top of hierarchy: extroversion, introversion, neurocriticism, stability, psychotism, normality. These have been ultimately reduced to two dimensions, namely stable, unstable, and introversion and extroversion. Each of these categories involve certain qualities at the next level or trait level. For example, the traits of an introvert would include such qualities as persistence, rigidity of approach, subjectivity, etc. These traits, in turn, are associated with the next habitual response level. For example, we may expect an introvert to be persistent in tasks like problem solving, etc. Generally, the last is the specific response level, which applies to specific task, in which also the traits involved in the categories would be expressed in diverse degrees. Yesnick's approach is hierarchical, with the top indicating types and lower traits. The type level in personality and trait level, habitual response level, and the specific response level. Whereas in the Cattle's trait approach to personality, Cattle has identified 12 independent and 4 secondary traits that describe the complete personality of an individual. These 16 factors are bipolar. They have, and the Cattle named these 16 personality traits as a source traits, differentiating them from the surface traits. The surface traits are easily observable, but the real traits are source traits, which represent a deeper unity than that revealed by surface traits. Characteristics of extroverts and introverts. Extroverts are described as ethnic, as outgoing and relatively uninhibited, fond of activities which bring them into contact with other people, and not attracted by solitary pursuits like study, crave for excitement, or aggressive, unreliable, easygoing, and optimistic. Introverts have the opposite traits such as inward, highly reserved, shy, like aloof, attracted by solitary pursuits like steady, rigid, highly reliable, persistent, and realistic. Esnick's research finding also lends support to the existence of extroverts and introverts. Merits and limitations of the trait approach. Usefulness of trait approach. Trait ratings are useful in the selection and placement of the person in courses, jobs, etc. Any cumulative record listing important personality traits is of value in the academic evaluation as well as educational and vocational guidance. Limitations of the trait approach. The trait approach to the personality is criticized on the following counts. It does not describe how the traits are organized within the individual. There may be interaction of different types of traits, and further, any trait has to be appraised according to the range of situations and circumstances. These are not accounted for in the trait approach. For example, boys rated high in aggressiveness were not found aggressive under all types of provocations. Freud's psychoanalytic theory of personality. Freud's theory of personality is based on the following two fundamental principles. The structure of personality consists of three components which functions independently at the same time, affect each other by their mutual interactions. They are ID, the unconscious mind, the ego, the conscious mind, which corresponds to the self, and the superego, which gets developed by the parental standards and the moral standards of the society. The human mind operates at three levels, that is, conscious, unconscious, preconscious, or subconscious, which lies in between the conscious and unconscious. ID. It is the inborn reservoir of a primitive psych energy called libido, which is completely unconscious and which demands immediate satisfaction of the unfulfilled desires. They're mostly sexual in nature and the instincts on the basis of what is known as pleasure principle. Regardless of the external reality, ID is the original source of personality from which ego and the superego develop. All the energy of the human behavior, says the Freud, is provided by inborn ID instinct, namely the sex and aggressions, which he later spoke of as life instinct, that is eros, and the death instincts is thanatos. Personality is molded by the way in which a person attempts to solve the conflicts between the ideas, demands for immediate gratification of these instinct and the social constraints. Ego, it develops out of the idea because of the need of dealing with the real world around the individual. The ego corresponds to the self and represents reason in keeping the demands of the ideas in check. In fact, it mediates between the unreasonable demands of ID and the restrictions laid by the superego, and as such it is executive agency of personality deciding what actions are appropriate. A superego, it is a system developed in the individual by incorporating the parental standards and the moral standards of the society as perceived by the ego. It is the internationalized representation of social and moral values, and it most nearly corresponds to what is known as conscience. To sum up, according to the Freud, the personality is a kind of an arena in which what the persons want to do, like instinct, ID, conflict with what he learned he should do, the morality as represented by superego, and where a reconciliation is made and compromise arrived at by ego. The personality of an individual gets shaped in the following two ways based on how efficiently his her ego is able to balance the ID and superego. Those who have a strong ego which succeed in balancing the ID and the superego will have a healthy and balanced personality. On the contrary, if a person has a weak ego which struggles to balance the ID and the ego, then tension and conflict occur frequently, which are often managed by adopting the defense mechanisms. The frequent use of defense mechanism itself indicates the danger of the onset of maladjustment in the person. Maladjustment may get expressed in two ways. It is the superego is powerful than ID, the unconscious desires and the instincts get suppressed as a result of which the individual may develop, that is neurocratic behavior. If the ID is a more dominant than the ego, then the individual may indulge in unlawful activities and become a delinquent. Freud, while attempting to explain the personality in terms of functioning of the three subsystems, is ID, ego, and the superego, emphasized the importance of the fulfillment of the sex instinct. Freud considered sex as a life energy, and the fulfillment of a sex instinct is one of the primary needs of the man. How far one's sex instinct is satisfied determines the status of the personality development of an individual. By knowing one's behavior, expressive of sex instinct satisfaction, we can judge at what stage of personality development he is at. Fruit stage of personality development. The Freud postulated that since birth, an individual passes through four stages of psychosexual development. The first stage is called the oral stage, which is spread over the first year of life, during which the child derives the pleasure through acts such as sucking, biting, etc., involving the mouth. The second and third year of the life of the child is covered by what is called the anal stage, since pleasure centers around the region at the time. The period corresponds to the period of toilet training, and if anxieties are felt due to the method of toilet training, this might sow the seed for the development of anal syndrome and marked by excessive conformities and compulsiveness. The anal stage is followed by phallic stage between 4 and 5 years. Here, the genitals become the source of pleasure. It is during this period the young boy manifests a love towards a mother and view his father as a competitor for his mother's love. He starts imitating his father to win his mother's love. In that way, the learns his sex role. Similarly, a girl develops a desire for the father. A Freud called this as Oedipus complex and Electra complex. Difficulties in development during this stage may lead to various forms of sex deviations. The phallic stage is followed by the period of dormancy known as latency period, which is marked by the lack of interest in sex. Coinciding with puberty and adolescence, marked by physical and sexual maturity, is the stage known as genital stage. This lasts up to adult years. Again, the pleasure centers around the genitals, which now is mean to establish stable, long-term sexual relationship. The integrated personality, the self-actualized personality, emotionally and socially mature individual, well-adjusted personality, integrated personality are all almost synonymous. Such a person has a realistic assessment of himself, his strength and weakness, has a stable self concept involving a higher level of self esteem, a fewer feelings of inadequacy, and a fewer evidence of compensatory behavior, and accept himself, leading to himself being accepted by others. Integrated personality implies the harmony between the lives, between the five important aspects of a personality, namely harmony between one's ability and capabilities, harmony among one's interest, harmony between one abilities and interest, harmony between one's self-concept and social constraints, and lastly, between one's life goals and social codes of conduct. According to the Skinner, the characteristics of an integrated personality are harmonious development of thoughts, feelings, and intention to activity, affection, sympathy, and a desire to cooperate with others, confidence in one's abilities, as well as awareness of one's weakness. All poets point out that an individual with integrated personality will have two important characteristics. One is self extension, another one is self objectifications. They have a clear life value and believe them personally and be involved in such values. Self objectifications, able to evaluate oneself without any bias. These two characteristics will jointly generate a good philosophy of life. They believe and practice the dictum be yourself and accept yourself. Let's revise the integrated personality, the self actualized personality, emotionally and socially mature individuals, well adjusted personality, integrated personality are all almost synonymous. Such a person have a realistic assessment of himself, his strength and the weakness, has a stable self-concept involving a higher level of self-esteem and fewer feelings of inadequacies and the fewer evidence of compensatory behaviors and accept himself, leading to himself being accepted by others. Integrated personality implies harmony between five important aspects of personality, namely the harmony between one's abilities and capabilities, and the harmony among the interests. One's interests, harmony between one's abilities and interests, harmony between one's self-concept and social constraints, and lastly, between one's life goals and social code of conduct. According to the Skinner, the characteristics of an integrated personality are harmonious development of thoughts, a feeling and intention to activity, affection, sympathy, and a desire to cooperate with others, confidence in one's ability as well as awareness of one's weakness. Pointed out that an individual with integrated personality will have two important characteristics. One is the self extension, another one is self objectifications. Self extension is have a clear life values and believe them personally and be involved in such values. The self objection is able to evaluate oneself without any bias. These two characteristics will jointly generate a good philosophy of life. They believe and practice the dictum be yourself and accept yourself. Personality assessment. From time immemorial, attempts have been made to predict the personality pattern of the individuals through astrology, palmistry, psychognomy, phrenology, predicting personality traits from bumps on the skull. Graphology, that is handwriting analysis. These are pseudoscientific techniques. To start with, the type approach of classifying people based on the central theme or characteristic styles of the individuals. Krishna, Sheldon, Spranger, Allport, and Vernon tried this type of approach. Following the cattle personality test, inventories were developed to identify and scale the position of different personality traits. Scientific and objective techniques of the personality development involved collection of behavior samples of various kinds. Generally, before trying to measure the personality, it is necessary to draw a list of personality traits which are to form the basis of assessment. The personality scores should be cautiously interpreted and must be always supplemented by data from other sources. Only trained and experienced person should undertake personality tests. Let's move on to approaches and method of assessing personality. Various methods employed in the assessment of the personality could be grouped under three major heads as shown below. One is the subjective methods, autobiography, self-rating, eliciting verbal responses. Questionnaires on the subject, attitude scales, inventories, interviews, aptitude tests, and interest inventories. Objective methods observe and rate the psychological measures and behavioral components. First one is observation, checklist, rating scale, performance, and situational tests. Third one is projective techniques, perceptive technique, appreciative technique, and productive technique. Perceptive technique is Rorschach ink blot test, technique is TAT, and productive techniques. Interview methods. Interviews involve a direct interaction between the tester and the subject, and the interviewer arrives at certain conclusion regarding an individual's standing in certain personality traits, not only for the nature of his answer to question but asked, but also from the way in which the subject conducts himself during the interview and answer questions. Interviews may be introductory, fact finding, or informative, diagnostic, or prognostic in nature. Interviews may also be structured following a standard pattern or unstructured, in which the interviewee determines largely what is discussed, although a skilled interviewer may elicit a lot of pertinent information through his limited questioning. An interview has beginning to establish the rapport, a middle to elicit information regarding the personality traits, and an end to terminate the interview on a cordial note by thanking the interviewee. The answer of the interview may be noted down or tape recorded for later analysis. Limitations of the interview method. Limitations of interview method. Interview is an art, and this skill is not present in all to the same degree. The problem of subjectivity involved in the method is its biggest limitations. The interviewer may dominate or humiliate the interviewee, and the interviewer may try to thrust his ideas on the interviewee. The use of interviews. The interview is the best option to collect the information from children, senior citizens, patients, illiterate persons, and very important person in the society who are very busy in their work schedules. Interview is used more for routine activities like student admission, filling vacant posts, the student counseling, occupational guidance, medical counseling, and judicial inquiry than for collecting information for research. Interview is also used in research, particularly in historical studies, clinical case studies, and survey. An ably conducted interview is a far superior to other forms of getting reliable information because no one wants to write as much as talking, especially about themselves. People are less cautious when talking compared to writing, as it is possible to clarify the objectives of certain question or their meaning. Appropriate responses could be obtained from the informants. By putting cross questions, the integrity of the respondents could be confirmed. The informants cannot modify or correct the responses they have already given to suit the questions fielded later. Let's we move on to rating scales. Rating are simply the assignment of a numerical scores that indicates the rater judgment of the observed individuals standing on a given particular personality trait. Generally, rating is done on a 5-point scale. Very high is plus 2, and high is plus 1. Average is 0, low is minus 1, and very low is minus 2 to indicate the degree or intensity of the trait present. Rating may be self rating, in which the subject rate himself, and experimental rating, in which someone else observe and rate the subject in the number of personality traits. Self-rating is susceptible to distortions due to self-interest, and so rating by others is more objective and valid. Factors like personal bias, generosity error, the rating all near the average, inaccuracies due to the ambiguity of the rating scale, and halo effect. Our knowledge of an individual rating in some personality traits influence our rating the same individual in another related traits affects the reliability and validity of rating. A number of rating scales of the same individual in a variety of traits may be combined in the form of a psychography or personality profile as given in the drawing below. A personality profile of a bank cashier. So they listed out from -3 to +3 in y-axis, and in x-axis intelligence, honesty, persistence, cooperation, dominance, sociability, and anxiety. The graph starts with intelligence with +2, and the honesty is +3. Average persistence, cooperation is -1. Dominance is average, that means 0, and sociability is -1, is low, and anxiety is in +1. By comparing the personality profile of an individual with those of successful men in a particular profession, we can predict whether the individual will success if he chose then that profession. They help us in occasional counseling. According to Goodhat, the questionnaire refers to a device for securing answers to questions by using an inquiry form with which the respondent fills in himself. In it, the various important questions regarding the topic under the investigation or personality traits will find a place. The testee has to note down the answers for the series of questions found in the printed sheet. From the nature of the answers given by the respondents to the questionnaire, his personality could be judged very well. Like questionnaires, personality inventories, usually the statement form are also used. Personality questionnaires and inventories were extensively used during the World War II to identify the soldiers with emotional disorders. A few sample questions from Woodward's popular questionnaires are indicative of the nature of personality questionnaires. The model questions in a questionnaire: do you generally sleep well? Yes or no? Do you walk in sleep without you knowing it? Do you often feel tired? Was your childhood happy? Could you mingle with your classmates easily without being shy? Do you really befriend with others? Are you irritated even for small hindrance? Do you often worry what others will think of you? Are you frequently troubled with feelings of inferiority. Do you daydream a lot? Many personality questionnaires and inventories consist of such questions have been developed. Woodward's personal data sheet, Alport's ascendance, submission reactive study, Bell's adjustment inventory, Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory, Newman scholastic diagnostics test, Cattle's 16 personality factors. Questionnaires are some of the standard personality questionnaires which are widely used. In Minnesota Inventory, 550 statements to evaluate 10 different personality traits are included. In occasional guidance, 16 PF from Form B is highly usable. The limitations of the questionnaire. It is rare for any respondent to mark his real personality characters in a questionnaire. In general, no one wants to state his or her negative personality traits. This method is subjective. The results cannot be verified. If anyone who does not know about himself fully gives some information regarding himself, and the questionnaire will lack construct validity. Merits of questionnaire. It is economical to use under various situations. It can be used by teachers in their classrooms without having any special training. It can be administered to the number of people at a time. Hence, it is less time consuming and also highly inexpensive. Projective technique. A projective technique strives to get at the fundamental organization of the personality. Relatively ambiguous and unstructured stimuli, like a vague pictures, ink blots, complete sentences, drawings, etc., presented to the subject, and he is asked to structure them in in any way he likes. In doing so, the subject quite unknowingly projects his own desires, hopes, fears, repressed wishes, etc. Thus, only not only reveals his inner or private world, but also give indications on the basis of which his total personality may be assessed. Three types of projective techniques. The three important types of project techniques are perceptive, like Rorschach ink blot test, where the subject is to report what he perceives of the stimulus presented. Appreciative, here the subject goes beyond what he perceives and offers instead an elaborate story. Productive, these rely on the performance of the subject, like what he draws, what object he makes of plastic clay, and how he plays a role. As salient features of the projective test items of projective test are quite unfamiliar to testes. Generally, the testes may not have prior knowledge about how to answer the test items or what are expected response for these test items. The responses of the testes are unique, revealing his her personality makeup. As the test items are presented to the testees in the gas of testing, the subjective or aesthetic sense and imagining ability, there is no chance for the testees to provide fake responses by hiding their true colors. The test items presented are generally ambiguous, unstructured, and vague, and as such do not provide any room for one's learning, memory, or intellectual skills. A projective test do not demand elaborate answers from the testees, and hence there is no need for the skill of explaining to make one's ideas clear. Here, the interpretation is made not on the basis of one's response alone, but rather in relation to the total configuration of responses. Rorschach ink blot test. This technique was developed by Hermann Rorschach, a Swiss psychiatrist, in 1921. The test material consists of 10 cards, each card showing an ink blot figure which convey no specific meaning and is of symmetrical nature on both sides. Out of these 10 cards, 5 are colored and other 5 are black and white with different shades of gray. Conducting the test, the subject is shown the card is in a sequential order, one at a time. Is asked to say what he see in the picture, what the picture remind him of. The subject is also indicative. The subject is also indicate the portion of the ink blot that suggests his response. Usually there is no time limit for the test, but some psychologists note down the reaction time for each card and make use of that in the final interpretation. The scoring and analysis of response. Objective scoring of the response are done based upon three aspects: location, determinants, content. Location. It refers to the particular part of a blot to which a single response refers. Some of the common symbols used in connections are WDSS, the whole blot area, large common details, small common details, and white space. The other details regarding the size, actual locations such as inside, edge, etc., are also marked with different symbols. Determines by the determinant is meant the particular aspect of the blot which direct the perceptual activity. The common determinants are the movement MFCK, movement, form, color, and texture or surface appearance. Content. It refers to the actual meaning of the word. The common symbols are HA, HDA, object, PL, and AT. H is a human figures, A is the animal figures, HD is a human detail, OBJ is a man-made objects, PL is plants, AT is anatomical details. The intelligent activity is mostly indicated by FWD, etc. The externalized emotions are indicated mostly by C or the combination like CF and K response. The internalized emotions life is indicated mostly by M, as administration and interpretation is a very complex process. Rocher's inkblot test could be used only by clinical psychologists. The test is highly useful in psychiatry. Murray Morgan's Thematic Appreciation Test (TAT). This test consists of 20 pictures, each picture is depicting a vague social situation. The subject is required to describe the situation as he perceives it. He is asked to describe as to what is happening at the present moment, as to what he has led to the present position, and as to what it is likely to lead to later on. In short, he is asked to spin a story with a picture. While constructing the stories, usually the individual identify himself with one of the characteristics in the picture, thereby projecting onto them his own feelings, urges, desires, and anxieties. The TAT responses are interpreted by analyzing the recurring themes in the stories, the need and the frustrations of the hero, and the description of the interpersonal relationship of the persons in the picture. The response of the subject help in understanding him. The test was developed by Murray and Morgan. For children, a separate test, CAT, has been developed. Situational test. We can call the situations test as a kind of performance test. The subject are observed in situation and they do not know that they are being assessed. The tests are camouflaged. A honesty test can be conducted on young children. For example, in a vocabulary test, a list of words may be given to the subject, who is asked to check only the words known to him. In the list of some fictitious words are also included. If a subject check fictitious words, also he is exposing his dishonesty by his overstatement. A check a list of books I have read can be similarly loaded with fictitious titles. Situational tests were extensively used during the Second World War in a program for the selection of men for the secret duties in the army. Hawthorne and many others have devised a number of such situational tests and performance tests of honesty. Such tests have poor validity. A situation test often involve interpersonal situations. Situational tests may use two techniques. One is psychodrama, another is sociodrama. Psychodrama, the individual has to play a role spontaneously in a situation. His behavior is observed by trained observers. This technique is used to assess the personality of maladjusted persons. The director of therapist plays an important role in organizing the situations in which the subject may express his bottled up emotions. The central principle of psychodrama is spontaneity of the individual. Sociodrama, the purpose and emphasis are different in sociodrama. In psychodrama, the subject taking the role is involved, but psychodrama portrays problems with which the audience is concerned. It deals with the problems of the group, its structures and thinking. Many modern pictures written and directed by creative thinkers are the examples of social drama. They reflect on the screen the corruption, nepotism, favoritism, red tapeism of the administrative setup. The free association test. Jung developed a free association test and was further elaborated by the Kent and Rozanoff. The free association test involved the uttering of stimulus word by the tester and the subject responds immediately by another word. The time taken for response, if long, may indicate blocks needing some more probing. The type of responses when analyzed will give a clue to personality characteristics. Conclusion. In this unit, meaning and definition of personality, characteristics of the personality, factor influencing the personality, biological, social, and psychological factors, three major approaches in describing the personality, and various theories under each of it, the characteristics of extroverts and introverts and their characteristics, the Freud psychoanalyst theory of personality, Freud and stage of personality development, and the integrated personality, the three important approaches in the assessment of the personality, wise subjective methods. The objective methods and projective techniques. Some important tools and techniques like interviews, rating scale, questionnaire, inventories, Rorschach's Inkbolt test, thematic appreciation test, and a free association test, and the situational test have been explained in detail. Thank you.